Hello and welcome to TaleTalk English. Today, I want to share a powerful and emotional story about trust, family, betrayal, and personal strength. This story is told in simple English to help you improve your listening and vocabulary naturally. Listen carefully and think about what you would do if you were in Eleanor's position. My name is Eleanor. I am 68 years old, and every time I look at an old black pen sitting in my bedside drawer, I remember the day my life changed forever. To most people, it is just a pen. To me, it is a reminder of the greatest betrayal I have ever experienced. I spent most of my life believing that family was forever. I believed that if you loved someone enough, sacrificed enough, and gave them everything you had, they would always love you in return. For 40 years, I lived by that belief. Unfortunately, I learned that love without respect can become a dangerous thing. My husband died when my son Ryan was still a baby. One moment I was a young wife with dreams for the future, and the next I was a widow raising a child alone. Life was difficult, but I never allowed myself to give up. Every morning I woke up before sunrise. I worked hard, saved every penny, and did everything possible to give Ryan a good life. Our house was small, but it was warm and welcoming. The kitchen always smelled of fresh bread, soup, and coffee. The laundry was always clean. The floors shined. Outside, my garden was full of beautiful red roses. Whenever neighbors passed by, they often stopped to admire them. Those flowers became a symbol of everything I worked for: patience, care, and love. Ryan was my entire world. I attended every school event, celebrated every success, and comforted him through every disappointment. When he was young, he often called me my hero. Hearing those words filled my heart with pride. I believed all my sacrifices were worth it. Everything began to change after Ryan married Vanessa. At first, I welcomed her into our family. I treated her like a daughter. I cooked her favorite meals and helped whenever she needed something. However, Vanessa never seemed grateful. She expected everything to be done for her. She rarely cleaned, never cooked, and spent most of her time shopping or scrolling through her phone. Slowly, I began to feel like a servant in my own home. The house that once felt warm and happy became uncomfortable. Ryan changed as well. He became distant and quiet. His business was struggling, and I knew he was under tremendous financial pressure. Debt collectors called frequently. Bills arrived almost every day. Whenever I tried to talk to him, he avoided eye contact and quickly changed the subject. Many nights I sat alone in the kitchen after everyone had gone to bed. The house felt different. The warmth was gone. Instead, there was tension hanging in the air. I often heard Ryan and Vanessa whispering behind their bedroom door. Their conversation stopped whenever I approached. Deep inside, I felt that something was wrong, but I could not imagine how serious the situation truly was. One evening, Ryan sat beside me and took my hand. He told me he was worried about my health. He mentioned my age, my back pain, and how much I worked every day. His voice sounded caring and sincere. For a moment, I felt happy. I thought perhaps my son had finally noticed how much I had sacrificed for him over the years. The following day, he surprised me by taking me to a beautiful restaurant. Soft music played in the background, candles glowed on the tables, and the atmosphere felt peaceful. During dinner, Ryan looked directly into my eyes and told me I was the most important person in my life. Hearing those words brought tears to my eyes. I wanted so badly to believe them. When we returned home, Ryan brought several documents to the kitchen table. He explained that he had found a special health insurance plan designed for seniors. He claimed it would provide excellent medical care and protect me in the future. As he spoke, he knelt beside my chair, just like he used to when he was a little boy. I trusted him completely. Without carefully reading the documents, I signed where he pointed. The black pen moved across the paper several times. I believed I was securing my future. I believed my son was protecting me. I had no idea that the papers were not insurance documents at all. They were legal papers transferring ownership of my home. That night, I slept peacefully. I felt loved and cared for. The next morning, I cleaned the house with a smile. Sunlight filled the rooms, and my roses swayed gently outside the window. I remember standing in the living room thinking that everything would be fine. I could not have been more wrong. A few days later, a black car arrived outside our home. Ryan told me it was time for my medical appointment connected to the insurance plan. Trusting him completely, I climbed into the vehicle. Instead of driving to a hospital, the car stopped in front of an old government care home on the edge of the city. The building looked gray and lifeless. My stomach tightened immediately. Confused, I followed Ryan inside. There, a manager reviewed some documents and casually informed me that my house had been sold that very morning. The money had been used to pay Ryan's debts. According to the paperwork, I had agreed to move into the care home permanently. For several seconds, I could not breathe. The room spun around me. My hands shook violently. I stared at my son, waiting for him to deny it, waiting for him to explain that there had been some terrible mistake. But no explanation came. The truth was written all over his face. I had been deceived by the person I trusted most. The realization broke my heart more than losing the house itself. My son had not only stolen my home, he had betrayed 40 years of love, sacrifice, and devotion. Over the following weeks, I experienced the darkest period of my life. I cried often and struggled to understand how everything had happened. Yet during that difficult time, I met a kind resident named Margaret. She listened without judgment and encouraged me to stop focusing on what I had lost and start thinking about what I still had. At first, her advice seemed impossible to follow, but slowly she helped me see that my life was not over. I joined painting classes, I made new friends, I started gardening again. One day, I purchased a small white flower pot and planted a single red rose. Watching it grow reminded me that life continues after loss. Meanwhile, Ryan's new life was falling apart. Vanessa spent money carelessly. The expensive apartment they moved into never felt like a real home. Arguments became common. The warmth that once existed in our old house was gone. 6 months later, Vanessa left Ryan for another man with more money. Soon after, Ryan lost his apartment and his struggling business collapsed completely. The wealth he had sacrificed everything for disappeared almost as quickly as it had arrived. One afternoon, Ryan arrived at the care home looking exhausted and broken. He knelt before me and begged for forgiveness. Tears streamed down his face as he admitted he had made the biggest mistake of his life. For a moment, I felt the old pain return. I remembered the black pen, the documents, and the day he abandoned me. But I also realized something important. Carrying anger would only continue hurting me, so I forgave him. However, forgiveness did not mean returning to my old life. I explained that I could never again become the servant I had once been. For the first time in my life, I had discovered my own value. I had friends, hobbies, purpose, and peace. My happiness no longer depended on sacrificing myself for someone else. Ryan cried as he listened. He finally understood that he had not merely sold a house, he had nearly destroyed the most important relationship in his life. Today, Ryan visits every Sunday. We talk about gardening, the weather, and ordinary things. Slowly, trust is rebuilding, but it grows carefully like a delicate flower. The black pen still remains in my drawer. I keep it not because I enjoy remembering the betrayal, but because it reminds me of the lesson I learned. Love should never make you surrender your wisdom. trust should never replace caution, and your value should never depend on how much you sacrifice for others. When I look out my window each morning, I see my red rose blooming in the sunlight. It reminds me of my own journey. Like that flower, I survived the storm. I lost petals, I bent under pressure, but I did not break. And now, for the first time in my life, I can honestly say something I never understood before. I am enough, just as I am.